he goes around to different churches and gives testimony talks.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That.
So
Cool.
here we are again, ladies. Anybody new tonight, or are we all the same?
We're all the same.
All the same.
Okay. I'm getting better. Shirley, raise your hand. Yes, that's who I thought you were. I'm going to get that. I got Mary. Lonnie's on the right. Mary's on the left. Rochelle, the black hairs. Yep. Sue, I know Sue next to Carla. Carla. Okay, right next to Rochelle, black shirt.
Aaron.
Aaron. I will remember that. And then
Karen.
what?
Karen.
Okay, Karen.
See that?
This stupid Zoom stuff sucks.
Yeah. And then Joni on the end.
Oh, I can never see her.
I don't know where I'm at. Right there.
I can never see her. I can never see her face. I barely see Lonnie, and I barely see Mary. Everybody else I can see.
That's okay. I'm one of the gray hairs.
No, I fit right in with you. I'm all gray myself. And then right beside you, Mary, I forget your name.
Cindy.
I will. Okay.
Cindy.
Cindy, Karen, Shirley, Sue, Mary, Lonnie. Who else am I missing? The one I can't. Who is that? I can't see there. I got to get her face.
Joni.
Gosh.
Joni. I am so sorry, but I just am one of these guys. One of my biggest pet peeves in life is when I say, hey, and then I feel like it's disrespectful. So I'm trying to learn your names. You know, I do want to get to know you in face.
Yeah. Come on here, Joni. Sit beside me. She said,
I'm fine. It's been a busy week. I haven't been home one night, so
let me tell you a little story how important knowing people's names are from an apologetic standpoint. When I started coming to church, the first time I ever stepped foot in a church was 2007 in January. I think my wife was going with Carla and Jim, I think in 2006, the end of the year. And I wouldn't come to church. I wouldn't step foot in it. I didn't want anybody around knowing that. And the first time she convinced me to step foot in the church, I met Pastor Ed, and whatever, like you always do when you meet people. And I didn't want to be there. I was kind of pissed off because my wife kind of drugged me there. But I get there, and the next week, I don't know, I can't remember if it was the next week, Carla, I came back. But listen to this, guys, the very first week of that first week I ever stepped foot in, we were in a YMCA. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. I got there late, so I didn't hear the worship. I remember walking in and seeing like a guitar and I forget what else up, maybe a drum set, but Jim wasn't the worship leader then. It was right whenever the guy that moved to Texas.
Chad was.
Yeah, Chad was still there, but he was leaving right there at that time. And I remember saying a couple things to myself. I said, I can't believe they listen to this devil music. Okay. Because when I grew up, until I was 18, so I walked away from the church and didn't believe in God for 18 years. It was Catholic, so it kind of had organs, and you just whatever you sing. I sing out of a book. So when I went in there, I remember that. But the cool part was, I remember they had it was right in the middle of a testimony Sunday, and I remember Carla. She was the very first person I ever heard speak. She was giving her testimony. And,
wow.
And it was a really short one. And you'll remember this, Carla, in a second. I caught the tail end of it because I came in late, but there was two people that spoke that day. Pastor Ed come to the microphone and give a little testimony about their faith walk. It was you, because you were just saved a few years before that, or maybe not saved, but you started coming to church, like 05, 04? Okay.
Yeah, 05.
Yep. And so I knew you were kind of fairly new, and I was new. And then I remember Julie Hainsey.
Yeah,
and Julie was there with Dale. and they were friends with you guys. And I remember she gave her testimony, and she was so raw. She was just one of these raw women. If you ever knew Julie, she's like a biker chick, and it just like she was just raw, and it was so awesome to hear people like that. It blew my mind. I remember we were praying for I wasn't praying nothing, but everybody was praying for each other for whatever. And I remember leaving that day saying, I was almost in tears because I was like, how do these people care about each other? They don't really know each other. And so I walked. That's one thing I remember. The second thing I remember is the very next time I came back. I can't remember if it was the next week or 2 weeks, but I chose to come back. And the very first thing when I walked in, Pastor Ed was there, and it was a smaller congregation at the time. It might have had 50, 60 people. And I walked in, and he walked right up to me, shook my hand, and said, "How you doing, Tom?" Right? And he kind of like cocked his head a little bit and said, "Tom, right?" And I remember saying to myself, I didn't say this to him. I'm like, "Yep, it is." And I remember saying, that dude remembered my name. And I don't know why that was so powerful to me, but let me tell you something. I mean, I've had my differences with Pastor Ed, and I've had my differences with a lot of people, but that it still doesn't negate the fact that for that testimony of remembering someone's face and name. So that's probably why I'm so adamant with everybody I know. I want to learn your name because I know how powerful it was to me. It makes you feel wanted. It makes you feel encouraged. And I just want to do that with you ladies. I think that's part of apologetics when you have conversations with people, and that I really believe the biggest part is winning them to Christ, and you can't win them whenever you're not friends,
Right.
So, at least maybe not even friends might not be the word, but at least acquaintances where you can really tolerate each other without walking away in haste. So remembering someone's name is very important in my mind. So I'm going to shut up about that, but I thought that just reminded me. That's why I ask you guys every week what your names are, because I will get it. So, okay. So let's start with conversation. We do it every week. We are going to, first of all, let's talk about new conversations. And has anybody had any conversations this week you want to discuss?
Mine continues tomorrow because last week I had talked with him on Thursday. So normally I talk with him on Friday, but my conversation about Nostradamus, how that affects his worldview, is tomorrow. So I haven't had any new ones this week. I do have somebody I'm working with. I do have one of my clients, one of my peers, just isn't real certain about God. She's not against God. She's not for God. She's just not real certain. She was raised Catholic. She just was taught to go to church. She has crosses hanging. This is a person, she has more crucifixes hanging in her house than I've ever seen, but she doesn't even know if he's real or not. So I'm looking forward to how that's gonna, she's kind of on a lower IQ level, but, it's important to her to have all, which, obviously being Catholic, we remember all the stuff hanging, but it's important to her to have all these crosses hanging. She let me pray with her one time. I didn't touch her, didn't do any of that, but we did pray one time. So I'm looking forward to how, because I've been kind of like, do I say, I don't know, I don't want to I have to watch with my job, obviously. But I've just been, she goes to Goodwill and Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul, and she just buys crucifixes. I mean, she's got them hanging like in a line, and she's got big pictures of Jesus. You would think you would say she was the most religious person because she's got all these artifacts, all this stuff hanging, but she doesn't even know if God is real. So
usually Catholics don't. I would think most Catholics don't know the Bible. They just know what the priest tells them because that goes back to the original.
Sure.
It goes back to the origination of the Bible. The kings didn't want it translated.
Sure.
They wanted to tell them what they wanted to tell them.
Right, and I was raised Catholic too. So So it's interesting.
Just listen to what the priest had to say.
Yeah. We were shopping one day and I was like, I might pick this shirt up for Jim because I share some of my personal life. And she was like, well, we wear that. And I was like, well, yeah, he'll wear it to preach. And it was just like a long sleeve, comfortable shirt. And she goes, why don't he get in trouble for not wearing that white thing around his throat? Like, so in her mind, like it's all, you know, yeah. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to how it's been. I'm going to see her Monday. So I'm going to start to talk about some stuff and see how.
Who is that, Carla?
She's one of my clients.
Okay.
That I see her 3 days a week. So.
Yeah. You know, it just reminds me, you know, you have your job. We all have our jobs. And, you know, Apostle Paul, he went and he was a tent maker, as we know, and he worked hard with his hands. And and everywhere he went, he worked. He didn't just go there and preaching the gospel. He worked and he got to know people, and the gospel just came out. So, I mean, I think that's pretty neat there. You know, you still have your peer star or whatever you work for, and, you know, you're able to interject the most important thing in her life slowly but surely.
Absolutely.
Anybody have any other conversations you want to talk about? Did anybody have anything that you wanted to bring up to the group that you know, thought was interesting or whatever? Hey, whenever I'm silent like that, Jim probably tells you all the time, don't worry, the silence is good.
Don't worry.
Okay, silence is good. I'm trying to draw out some memories because you might be like later going, oh, I forgot about it. I did have something or I missed something. So I'm just, whenever I'm silent like that, it's just because I want you guys to think.
I just had something to add to the handout that Carla just gave, but I don't think people have had time to read it. But I had something I wanted to bring last week, and I didn't because I was fearful that, you know, it just wouldn't go over too well because I'm a new person here and I didn't know how the church felt about it. But I have a big thing about Halloween. I really don't like Halloween.
Well, hey, Mary, hold that thought.
Yes.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Is the packet she just handed out the Halloween packet?
Yes.
Okay,
I didn't get it.
Well, you weren't here.
It's 2 pages that she just gave us.
Okay, and it's about Halloween.
I got mine on Sunday.
I was in my.
That's all I'm asking is
About Halloween.
Okay. Just hang into that thought, Mary. We'll revisit that in a minute, okay? I want to make sure anybody else had any other conversations.
Johnny needs one.
Where's yours at? I gave you one Sunday.
I said I forgot it at home.
Okay.
I forgot mine at home.
Share. I'm just kidding. I'll
Okay.
make more.
We have to
Share and save a tree.
We have to be on the share.
Well, I won't wait too long there. If you guys think of a conversation you had, you can basically just stop me at any time and just say, hey, I just remembered something. So I encourage you ladies to have conversations with your family, friends, enemies, whatever.
Well, I might ask a question. My question is, are you guys purposefully praying on a daily basis for conversations to happen?
No.
Are you seeking out conversations?
No, not at this point.
No.
That's fine. That's fine. They'll come. Believe me, they'll come. They're always there. They're like that. They're like that thing on your shoulder or that itch you can't reach. It's always going to be there. You guys will recognize them as they come about in your life, and God will provide more opportunities as the door opens. Just be aware. You know, I'm not asking you to go out and start knocking on doors. I'm just saying live your life. And if something comes up, I'd love to hear about it here because I think it'll help me. It'll help me and Dan and us in our walk. And maybe it's something that we've never encountered before, that somebody poses a question or something. So I want to learn. So please, don't be ever afraid to, even if you think it's the most stupidest thing ever, don't worry about it. Bring it up. Believe me, if it's something that's off the wall and we're down a rabbit trail, I will shut you down. All right. I'll stop it. Okay, I won't let us waste an hour on something that's irrelevant. But you know, there is times whenever you guys think you don't have a conversation, you really do. So with that said,
I have something to add.
sure.
I don't get involved in the conversations regarding the Bible because even though I've been with this for like 40 some years, I still don't have enough confidence to be able to get into a discussion that I would have to give more information than I know, or I have a lot of information in my head. I have a lot of information in my head, but I just can't articulate it when I get into like a bit of a confrontation. I shut down when that happens.
That's awesome, Mary, because you know that's what we're trying to learn to do. It's not just knowledge we're learning how to be wise. Okay, and there's a big difference between knowledge and wisdom. Okay, knowledge you can have. Knowledge only helps you. Wisdom helps others. So as we become wise, we'll learn how to articulate that knowledge that's in our heads. And if you really have a want to, the Holy Spirit will help guide us. It definitely will help the conversation. By you saying what you said, Mary, that I don't know how to articulate, so I don't really try to have the conversation, that is a great statement. Because I'd rather you tell me that as a skeptic or whatever than baffle me with BS. All right.
Yeah.
So I think that's good that you recognize that. So we're going to learn how to do it. And that just comes with confidence. I mean, none of us are going to get it right. The best part about God for me is when you get it wrong, we can go, the most biggest witness to people's lives are going back and say, hey, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? I learned this now. And that is a huge thing for people. So, you know, don't baffle them with BS. That's the answer. So with that said, before I move on to that Halloween packet, I will briefly discuss that. We won't spend a lot of time, but we will discuss it because I wanted to last week. But the homework, if nobody has any conversations, you guys remember what I said for the homework?
Yes. We were supposed to pick out scripture on trust or truth. Truth and love.
Yeah, in love. Did anybody find anywhere?
None of us have done it for 3 weeks.
Okay. Hey, let me help you out. I didn't do it either. So I was waiting for you guys to give me the answer.
Well, I was waiting.
I was thinking about it here a half hour ago, going, dang it, where did every time I think of love, I think of Jesus. So I'm thinking about where he had a passage.
Remember now?
I found something on trust.
Okay, good.
Can you hear Karen? She found something on trust.
On truth.
Yeah.
Well, truth, trust.
Yes, she said trust.
No, it was
Okay,
truth.
What is it? The wrong thing then.
That's all right.
That's okay. That's okay. If we don't have it this week here, it gives me some incentive. Let's continue it for next week, and maybe in a month we'll do it.
Who did the
Well, I got the loved one.
Oh, I did the authors that it was like you said which books weren't quoted or whatever that we were supposed to find out. It was a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Here's what I thought I gave you guys somewhere. I could be way off Facebook. Was basically let's look up the L and the T conversations within the Bible. I gave you an example of Acts 17, how Paul was aware, and then Jesus with Luke 7 was how he told John the Baptist, if you don't believe in me, at least believe the miracles. And he was able to show him how to be secure in his faith, that he got it right. He was the one that was supposed to come. And then I wanted you to find stuff like with L for love or T for truth that shows a conversation. It can be Old Testament too. Conversation that shows in that conversation there was love. Might not been there might not been an answer, but it showed love in action, love in action. And then the other one was about truth. You know, where a conversation showed truth, a very confident truth that was being told to somebody. That's what I wanted to reach out. So if we haven't done it, let's look for them for next week.
I did do that. I did do one of them. I did do love and truth. And I looked up the woman at the well.
Where you at? Let's tell us. We'll all go there.
John 4:4-26.
I can't see anyhow.
So I can go ahead and read it.
Wait a minute, Carla.
Everybody gets there.
Yeah, wait.
John 4:4-26.
Okay. Hey, Carla. Whenever you see everybody's there, you can just start reading it. Read what you and stop where you want to stop. Okay.
Okay. Okay. John 4:4-26.
And make sure everybody's there because I don't want anybody to be trying to find it.
Right.
John 4.
Everybody ready?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Because I can't see that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Joni said
When you're done, Carla, we're going to discuss it real quick, okay?
Okay, so I'm going to read out of the NAS. So, and he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a city in Samaria called Sychar, near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, being weary from his journey, was sitting thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Therefore the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink, since I am a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it was who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." She said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get the living water? You are not greater than our father Jacob, and you who gave us the well and drank of it himself and his sons and his cattle." Jesus answered and said to her, "Everyone who drinks this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him shall never thirst. But the water that I will give him will become in him a well of water springing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so I will not be thirsty, nor come all the way to draw." He said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered and said, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, You have correctly said, "I have no husband," for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. This you have said truly. The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and the people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people the Father seeks to be his worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming. When that one comes, he will declare all things to us." Jesus said to her, "I speak to you, I am he."
Okay. So you said you found that are you saying you wanted to go with the L or the T or both?
Both. I think it does both, because he spoke to her in love and he spoke truth to her. And I mean, she received him immediately. She knew whenever he spoke that truth. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it was gentle. But it was right out there.
First of all, it was a Jew talking to a Samaritan woman, and they were enemies. So that right there is your love.
Right. Good point. Yep.
As soon as you said that, I was like, "Yep, that's."
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't care.
What else? What else do you see in that passage? I think it's good, Carla, but I just want to pull out if anybody. What other thoughts?
What else? What do you guys see?
Well, the truth, like you said, because
Yeah.
she agreed with him about the husbands.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
Now,
think that's what really made her believe, because he knew something that she didn't think he'd ever know.
And he didn't toss her to the side either. Yeah. He
Or
didn't,
judge her.
right.
right. So how else does it show truth? If we're going to use that, if we're just going to stick with L, with the love.
Well, the truth, he said, I am he.
Yeah.
I mean, he said it right there.
And he talked about the living water, which was the truth about what was to come, right?
Yeah.
Well, she said, the woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming. So she knows about the Messiah. And so she's saying, I know the Messiah is coming. And then that's when he said, I am he. That's
Hey,
the truth.
Dan, you have anything to add?
No, she was the smear.
It sounds like something right up Dan's alley. That's why I was asking him.
Waiting for him to pipe in. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just Liam's yelling on the PlayStation. I haven't muted.
All right, we'll let him think a little bit. I think it just reminds me of something Dan really would talk about. So, I don't know. I guess from all the years being around him.
It takes.
I thought it
You gotta.
was
I don't think off the top of my head. I have to look at things for a while.
Well, we'll come back to Dan later. So I think that's a great passage, Carla. I think that's exactly what I was looking for. I'm looking for stuff that shows. Now, let's for instance, let's just hypothetically take out the fact that Jesus is God. Okay, let's take it out, because these people didn't know he was God. They just thought him as another human being, especially a Jew. And he had a conversation where I think Sue's right. I think it really shows the love that, because Jews never talked to the Samaritans. I never thought of this passage here, so this is good. I wrote this down because we're gonna get together a little list of scriptures we can fall back on for the SALT acronym. And if we all agree eventually, if someone brings another one in, we will use that or look at it too. But I really think it does show the L. It shows truth too, but there's many other ones we can show for truth too. But I really like the L. I think what I was looking for is his conversation. How did he love her, knowing that she was not a Jew or a believer? I mean, he didn't just kind of berate her, he didn't jam a plunger down her throat. The awesome part is he let her discover what the truth was.
right.
And if you remember what I always say, discovered truth sticks. I mean, she discovered it in that conversation, that who she was talking to. She figured it out. And it was figured out through a lot of truths, so to speak, and a lot of things he pointed out in her life, but I just really think it's cool to see how people really, you look at our age in America, and you look how many people we turn away as Christians by trying to have conversations. And in these times, in the biblical times of the New Testament and Old Testament, there was many times they walked away, and we know that a lot of people walked away from Jesus' teaching and the apostles, and they killed everybody for him. But in the same breath, there was many times it didn't walk away. This is one time it didn't walk away. I wonder whatever happened to this lady, the woman at the well. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine what she did when she went home?
Right.
Well, didn't she go back to the village and tell people?
Yeah.
It's succeeding information there. She goes back to the village and tells them.
Yeah.
But he means, I think
He told her everything about her life, so that was her testimony.
Amen. Yep. And guess what? It was probably all positive stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how many times did you ever feel like you talked to someone about God and they walk away and you go, boy, did I blow that? I screwed that one. I don't think Jesus felt that way. I think he felt when he walked away that he did a good job at loving her. So that's all I want to say about that. We'll revisit that later. We have a lot to cover, but anything for the truth, any different passages or another.
If you go to 39, in the same chapter 4, and you go to 39,
Fourth,
and it's
hold on a
many of
minute.
the
Hold on a
the
minute.
city.
John chapter 4:39.
It's the same one that she was on. It's just she went to 24, and if you go down to Scripture 39.
Okay, go ahead.
And many of the Samaritans of the city believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified, he told me all that I ever did. So that's an important issue.
Yeah. And how would that fall in like the reaction of the conversation? That was the result of the conversation, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I mean that's important. Because listen, we're going to get a reaction and a result of every conversation we ever have, right? It's either going to be a negative one or a positive one, or just don't even think about it. But there is going to be a result of a conversation. It's either going to be continued later. I mean,
That's where it says, when the Samaritans had come to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 more days. So they were fairly convinced from her testimony that they wanted to follow him or at least listen to him.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful stuff there. I guess my point is, I don't want to beat a dead horse, is it ended up in this instance pretty good. Now, we don't know whoever else comes to believe in him later out of that, but I mean, we do know that it continued with her on to other people. And that's the goal. Make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's our commandment. So guess what? She's telling people, if they get it, they're telling people. That's how it works. So someone has to be the catalyst to that. And I think all Christians are the catalyst for that. So anyhow, any other ones? Any other scriptures about the T in truth or the L? All right, I'm gonna. If you think of one, just tell me. We'll stop. If Dan thinks of something he wants to add or something, he'll eventually think about things and maybe add something. We can just revisit it later tonight or something. Okay. And if we have no other conversations and we didn't find any more conversations in the Bible, continue to do that for next week. And let's briefly look at the Halloween packet. Okay. We're going to shift gears for just for about 5 minutes. This ain't going to be a lengthy discussion. You know, there's some things I just want to go over with this. So, does everybody have the packet with the origin of Halloween?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Has everybody read through it? Do we need to read it, or has everybody read it?
We just got it. A couple of us just got it.
Okay, well, let's do this then. If a couple of you just got it, it won't take more than 5 minutes. Somebody read the first page and then someone read the second page. No comments. Let's just read it, and then maybe we can discuss a few things at the end, okay? Someone read to page 1 and then stop, and then someone can pick up page 2.
Christian history of Halloween. The question, what is the Christian history of Halloween? And the answer is Christian history of Halloween, the origins. Halloween began to evolve as early as AD 270 from the Celts culture in Ireland, who practiced a special costume party event the night before their annual feast of Samhain, which had a twofold purpose. Excuse me. The feast was not only a memorial to commemorate their deceased relatives, but also a thanksgiving to close the end of the summer season of light and to prepare diligently for entering into the darkness of the long winter season. Superstition has it that the eve before the feast was then a time to ward off any evil spirits which they believed were cast out or released from the spirit world realm into their physical world, and who would come to attack the feast celebration. Believing that demons, witches, and hobgoblins were real and existed, October 31st then became an annual costume event to try, through disguised appearance, fool the evil spirits into thinking they were not humans to be harmed. The Druids, who were the Celts' ruling class, required of everyone to attempt tricking the evil spirits by dressing up to look like goblins, witches, and devils, and by carving ugly, monstrous faces on gourds lighted with candles, and by sweetly putting treats outside their door. The challenge, according to superstition, was to divert the evil spirits' attention away from their feast the following day. Somebody else, please.
I have that same problem.
Christian history of Halloween missionary involvement. The Lord had different plans for the Celts, and during the 2nd century, he sent a few missionaries to England and Ireland to convert the people to Christianity. When the Christian missionaries journeyed from Europe and arrived in the land of the Celts, the Druids, after hearing the gospel, became eager for all their people to become Christians and to denounce their pagan gods and practices, such as superstitiously appeasing and cast off evil demon spirits. In time, they adapted and combined the tradition of their feast on November 1st and All Hallows Eve together with the gospel. The Christian monks decided it would be an effective way to share the gospel and to dispel and lay to rest the Celts' superstition about ghosts and evil spirits. That Christ, their creator and savior, defeated Satan, death, and evil at the cross, and through him alone, evil demons were powerless and would flee. Halloween and the Samhain feast also provided an opportunity to be reminded of or learn about Christian heroes and martyrs, along with the Celts continuing to officially recognize and commemorate the souls of their blessed dead who had been declared saints. Many scholars agree that the commemoration of saints on November 1st, my son's birthday, was originated in Ireland, spread from there to England, and then to the continent of Europe with the rise of Christianity. By the 9th century, the Roman Catholic Church adopted the Celts' Halloween tradition, and Pope Gregory IV sent out an official letter of notification urging that Halloween be observed in harmony with All Saints' Day throughout the Roman Empire. Halloween is derived from the term All Hallows Eve and Hallow Mass, meaning holy evening.
Okay, does anybody, hey, Carla, did you give him the other one too?
No, I didn't do it till you were ready.
Okay.
Wait, that was just this. There was 2 pages for the Halloween.
Yeah, well, that one was the Christian history of Halloween. The other one I gave you, unless you didn't get it, was the origin of Halloween.
I don't think I have, no.
Okay,
I don't think I have that.
if you don't have it, I'm sorry. I thought I emailed it to you, but that's okay. It's not as important, it's just something I want to talk about. But if no one has it, let me read what I have and just listen, okay? Use this, listen to this compared to what we just read about the Christian history of Halloween. You don't have to get it, Carla.
You sure?
I'm sure.
My son's birthday.
Seriously.
My-
You'll be fine.
Okay.
I'm just going to, because we're not spending a half hour on this. I just want to read this and we're going to have a little discussion, then we'll be done.
All righty.
All right. Let me read this. Just listen. The origin of Halloween from Celts, or how do they pronounce that? Celts or Celts?
Celts.
Okay.
Celts is the basketball team.
All right. The Celts to the Its origin of Halloween from Celts to the Romans. This is just another thing that these people wrote. Some historians trace the origin of Halloween back to the Celtic people of pre-medieval Europe. The Celts of Ireland, Britain, and France divided their year into halves. The light half, roughly consisting of the spring and summer months, when days are longer, nights are shorter, and the dark half, roughly consisting of the autumn and winter months, when days are shorter and nights are longer. Celts celebrated the end of the light half of the year with the festival of Samhain, pronounced whatever, which they observed during the October/November lunar cycle. Following the Roman conquest of Britain, British Celts adopted the Julian calendar and fixed the date of Samhain's observance to November 1st. Costumes and treats were a traditional part of the Celtic celebration, and while Samhain began as a strictly Celtic festival, It is probable that aspects of Roman religion were incorporated into the observance over the 4 centuries of Roman rule in Britain, 43 to 410 AD. For example, Pomona was the Roman goddess of fruit trees and gardens. Her symbol was an apple. Some scholars believe this may explain how candied apples and bobbing for apples became associated with Halloween, as Samhain was later renamed. The origin of Halloween from pagan to Christian.
Other connection.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cutting out, but
Okay. Other historians trace the origin of Halloween back to the ancient and enduring Christian tradition of celebrating the lives of Christian martyrs on the anniversaries of their deaths. When Pope Boniface IV reconsecrated the Pantheon in Rome on May 13th, 609 AD, renaming it the Church of St. Mary and the Martyrs, he established the anniversary as a day of celebratory remembrance for all of the church's martyrs. Pope Gregory III later changed the date of remembrance to November 1st when he dedicated a chapel in St. Peter's Basilica to All Saints. November 1st became All Saints' Day, otherwise known as All Hallows' Day. The night before became All Hallows' Eve / Halloween, being a colloquial or whatever contraction of the phrase. While Halloween began as a localized celebration, Pope Gregory IV extended its observance to all of Christendom in the 9th century AD. As Christianity spread throughout the world, pagan holidays were either Christianized or forgotten. Samhain was absorbed into Halloween. Costumes and gifts and bobbing for apples were preserved, incorporated into the new holiday. They remain a celebrated part of Halloween to this day, many centuries later. The origin of Halloween as a secular celebration in many parts of the world goes back to Europe's rich Christian heritage. European empires conquered most of the world in the centuries following the Age of Exploration, allowing them to export their Christian faith and festivals to the rest of the world. With the enlightenment of the 18th century, secularism took root in Europe and spread to her colonies abroad. Christian holidays like Christmas, Easter, and Halloween were secularized in many parts of the world. The celebration of Jesus Christ's resurrection was supplanted in the popular culture by the Easter Bunny. Trick-or-treating eclipsed pious regard for Christian martyrs. Now, before we get into anything crazy, my purpose to this, let me tell you my purpose. 2 things. 1, we just passed Halloween. It's alive and well in America. It's here. We face it. It's something you can't avoid. It's just like Christmas and everything. Regardless if you believe in it or not, in Christianity, I just wanted to, every time we come up to a holiday, I want to kind of discuss it a little bit, because from an apologetic standpoint, it's going to come up in conversations, and we probably all had them. And we probably all had them. We may weigh one side or the other. And the purpose of this was not to get into a debate about if it's correct for Christians to do this. The point of it was to show the history, the historical side of how it came to America. That's what intrigued me the most. Was I never knew how we got Halloween up until I started researching it. So for me, it was interesting just to know, how did we get it? Where did it come from? How did Christianity, why do we accept it? Some of Christians do and some Christians don't. Some people that aren't Christians, whatever. I just wanted to know the origin of it. And it's pretty neat knowing the history, because how that helps you from apologetics is, it doesn't mean you have to weigh you agree or don't agree. But when you have, like Mary said earlier tonight, she said she has all this information in her head, right? But until we learn how to communicate that, it just remains here and it's only for us. So when we can communicate, if someone says to me, I don't believe in Halloween, you're a Christian, you're a sinner, you're going to hell. Well, that opens up a great conversation for me. Because if I know a little bit of information about the history of it, I'm sure I can communicate a good conversation and eventually get off the smoke screen of what they're really trying to do to me and get on to their real purpose of why they're having a God conversation or a Bible conversation. So that was my purpose of this. I mean, I'm going to let you guys interject a little bit because I'd like to hear your thoughts about this, but I don't want to go too long in this, so I will cut you off in a few minutes. I wanted you guys to know where it came from, and this might not be everything right. This is just the little research I did. There might be a book like Mary has that gives us a lot more information, and that's awesome. And if someone's interested in that, they can read about it. But it was just about, I just wanted to say, how can we learn some information that'll help us maybe present the gospel? The one thing that struck me, and this is what I'm going to end with, this is the Roman popes, Roman Christian popes, Catholic popes. Obviously, when you get to know me, I feel they got a lot wrong, and they got a little bit right in their lives of the centuries, but they got most of it, I feel, off Keter, and even to this day. So with that said, I feel they had good intentions, maybe at first from reading the history of it, but it obviously turned the wrong way. So it's like everything else. So that's the one thing that I noticed in that was how the church, for whatever their reasons were, I wasn't there, I don't know, but it sounds like they tried to do it. Hey, let's take a pagan tradition and let's talk about our God. Doesn't that sound like Acts 17? Where he's going through and he sees this pagan culture and he says, let's interject Christ in there somehow. So I think their intentions were good like Paul, but I think they got it all gobbled up and screwed up. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So if anybody wants to add about Halloween, let's not debate about it. Let's just talk about some information.
I have this little book that I asked Carla to make a copy, and maybe she could send it to you and see if you approve and then hand it out to the others. But it did come from CBN, Christian Broadcasting Station. So it's, I would think it's legitimate. But it gives a lot more information that you had, but a lot of that you did have. But it says that there are alternatives for the Christian to try to celebrate this day and not in an evil way. And there's 5 different ways that they can do it. But the one thing that made me think of this church was it said to use trick-or-treating as an opportunity to tell others about the love of Jesus. Most Christian bookstores carry small pamphlets about the Lord designed especially for children on Halloween. And these could be taped to candy and dropped into a trick-or-treater's bag. So since the church handed things out, I was going to bring this book several weeks ago, but I was afraid to interject it, and I didn't do it.
Hey, Mary,
that was the thing to do.
Mary, great minds think alike. You're a skeptic like me, so guess what? I think it's awesome. I think you should be able to give her. She can get it to me somehow, and I'll read it over, and we'll discuss it at a later time.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then there was another one that says to have a different kind of a party instead of a Halloween. You can have a fall harvest party on All Saints Day, or simply a costume party. Have the children and maybe the adults dress up in biblical characters and or figures from Christian history. Or find some other positive thing. Some Christians plan a Fools for Christ party, and that involves costumes and craziness, but none of the traditional symbols of death and witchcraft. Whatever you choose, avoid the usual Halloween symbols and decorations and activities. So if she wants to send it on to you, and then
send it on to me and I'll look it over. Does anybody else find anything interesting about that article? I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts, Anything?
It only backs, I've already read or heard somebody talk about, but a lot of our holidays are based on
Pagan holidays.
That they use and just changed the name so that people would accept them more easily.
they infiltrate.
Yep, right.
Commercialized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was my whole goal of handing that out, was basically just to show you. I think it's neat. I'll bet you everyone in that room we learned something about Halloween. And I know I did, and I went over it with my wife first. Before I sent it off to Carla, I'm like, because she's a woman, I'm like, do you think I should do this with women, or should I leave this just to the men? And she's like, no, it's pretty cool. So really, I just, it was more just information, and it may come out someday. Someday you may be talking to someone and they say, I don't believe because of this. And all of a sudden you give them a little information of the history, not agreeing or disagreeing. And it all of a sudden turns into this lifelong conversation, friendship. And next thing you know, you win them to Christ later. So that was the whole point of it. Dan, do you want to talk about anything? Or are you still thinking?
I think he's playing Sega. Sega.
There. I think he's sleeping.
Halloween.
My game.
No, on anything.
If someone put a pamphlet in my kid's trick or treat thing on Halloween, I would go back and punch him in the face. That's just me. You can't cover up something. My whole thing with Christians or Christianity is just what Jesus said. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. You're either for it or you're against it. You either say Jesus Christ, don't say cheese and rice. It means the same thing. So always let your yes be yes and your no be no. But you don't have to be an ogre about it, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. As you guys get to know Dan, you can talk to him. He gets these crazy Dan-isms there. You just got to decipher it. So, but hey, I'll decipher that. Do what you say.
And don't try to incorporate in with pagans if you don't agree with it. Don't try to trick somebody. Be honest. Be yourself. Like you can't win anybody over with a lie. So be yourself when you do something.
I don't see anything. I honestly don't see anything wrong. If kids are going to come to the church, like every year, kids come to this maze and they know that we're going to show them the love of Christ. And we do give them, we have in the past, it's never been like a Bible track or anything like that. But they know what they're going to get whenever they come here. And I don't see anything wrong with giving them something that has the church's name on it or whatever. There's something little, not like a whole track. I don't mean anything like that.
I don't mean like that. I mean, obviously, if I came to your church, I know what I signed in for. Like, if I kids to the church for Halloween, I know what I signed up for. I'm talking about like me going out and with soapboxing during Halloween or like tossing out things. I don't know. To me, it's in poor taste. But if I went to the church, past the church on Halloween, which we have, and they hand out hot chocolate, I know what I'm signing in for. I have that choice, and it's not plundered.
Right. That's what her booklet said about doing. Yeah.
Church.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I just always think that your yes be yes and your no be no. Like, don't be dishonest with anything or ever try to sneak faith in with anything. Just be yourself. And if that's what you believe, it's good. It's fine. I always like situations where I know what I'm getting into. If you try to bamboozle me,
that doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So I always like people to be very upfront. Even if I like people I disagree with more than people that I agree with most of the time. If that makes any sense. Like, that's just the kind of personality I have.
I think you would have to read all the other information in that little pamphlet that would give you all
I'll email
the
it to you as
information
well.
about how it can be a pagan holiday. And
I know I only got the tip of the iceberg there, but stuff like that always just, I grew up like that. And I know the intentions of people doing that. And the intention was always to trick me into believing with God. If you can't convince me on the merit, don't try to trick me with it. Like, give me with the merit of it, the meat and potatoes. Don't go in the back door.
I knew I'd
I didn't think CB Back door.
Hey, you probably don't want me to get him to talk. He won't shut up. All right, hey, that's all I want to talk about with the Halloween. We can discuss things later, but that was just to provoke a thought process is what the idea of that all was, okay? So it sounds like it did. So I got definitely some interesting stuff from everybody talking tonight about Halloween and stuff. So we can look at that later. You give her the book there, and I'll look it over, Mary, okay? Now, before we move on, I forgot something, and I apologize to Lonnie. There is a conversation Lonnie had, and it was homework I gave you guys. And I didn't do it really good. I started looking into it, but I've been so busy, I slacked. And I've been so busy with work, I only got a little bit of information on it. But do you guys remember what that was?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, not Lonnie. I don't want Lonnie to tell me. Does everybody else remember?
We're supposed to talk about universalism, something, blah, blah, something. Wait, I wrote it down. I didn't do it, but I wrote it down.
You researched the new world order, or is it
New Age
movement?
Yeah, I didn't research it because I already know about it. But anyhow, yeah, we were supposed to read New Age.
So thank you. That's exactly it. Well, there's a lot. That's a new type of thing that's come around in the last 20 years that we all run into. We all know people that have these kind of thoughts of universalism, New Age, secular, whatever you want to call it. It's actually not even really a religion. It's just a thought process. It's how they've taken different things and made it their own kind of. So, does anybody? I mean, there's a lot to this, and I don't. It could take up our whole night, and I don't want to do that. But I do want to be respectful to Lonnie because she's had a conversation with someone, and we want to try to provide a little bit of answers to help her have that conversation further with that person. So, have you talked any more, Lonnie, with her?
I have not.
Okay.
I did want to add one thing. I wanted to add something. I think this will help everybody understand this, or maybe it will help everybody. When you talk about universalism, the easiest way to remember is una means one. It is one. The main core belief of people that are universalists believe that there is all paths go to God. There's one God, but all paths go to him. So you can be a universalist and you believe that Buddhists go to heaven, that
Psychics.
psychic, like all different religions. Yeah, that Buddhists and Hindus and Christians and Jews and Islam, or all of those. It doesn't matter. Whatever you choose, whatever path you want to take, will all ultimately get you to God.
Well, it's New Age and universalism, same thing.
Well, the New Age movement, New Age is like the big
Umbrella.
title, the umbrella. Universalism is a part of New Age.
Okay.
New Age takes Eastern philosophies from thousands of years ago. They're New Age, the Buddhism and Hinduism and yoga. No,
Yoga's in there.
it is, but it's not. Yoga's not yoga, not the practice. To do the physical exercises of yoga is not bad, but when you engage in the actual, when you engage in the
Incantation.
when you engage in the religious aspect of
Transcendental
it.
meditation.
Yeah, Reiki, transcendental meditation.
I think all that's about, they believe that everybody is born with divinity, but they've forgotten it.
Yeah.
And the meditation is supposed to get you like in touch with
It's a
that
higher level of
divinity
consciousness.
that you were born with.
So,
Yeah.
Lonnie, do you think that's where she stands, is what we're talking about, or not?
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
You think she's kind of on that page? Because maybe you have to probe a little deeper with some well thought out questions, because I don't want to, one thing we don't want to do is put words in people's mouth. We're kind of discussing what this is, but it might not be exactly what she believes. All I remember Lonnie was saying, and she might have to give us more information when she talks to her again, is she don't believe there's no devil. She doesn't believe in there's a heaven and hell. She believes that when you come in and there's bad vibes there, she has to leave because she only wants good vibes. That's just what I remember. And so maybe she's married a couple different belief systems. And remember what our goal is. Our goal is to get her to think outside her own little box. She's going to put it through her own filter, and it's going to come out just like we filter things, what comes out of us. But we're trying to provoke, remember the Roadrunner tactic, where she feels she's out on thin air because she can't really answer it, not being mean, but asking well thought out questions. So she has to answer them for herself and ultimately give it the answer back to us. And when they feel out over the edge and they have nothing underneath them, that's when we come in and we know they're vulnerable for the truth. And we can do that through being the salt. We can go in there and gently grab them and pull them back onto the earth instead of letting them fall like the Wile E. Coyote down to the earth and the big puff of smoke. We don't want them to fall, but we do want them to feel out on the edge. And how do we get them out on the edge, out in thin air, other than asking them? We got to know more information. So Lonnie, I'm going to ask you, if you talk to her again, tell her that, if you don't mind, tell her that there's a dude that you're in a class with that wants to know more information about her thought process. Because I find it interesting with that, because I don't even know how to help someone like that until I know more information. So maybe think of some questions, maybe talk with the ladies when we're done, or tomorrow or this week, and say, what do you guys think I should ask her to provoke a better conversation? Okay. And then you can bring it to the class, and maybe each week, maybe if you talk to her, maybe each month we can kind of revisit. We'll get to know a little bit more how to help her. Because right now she thinks she's good. She don't need help. My son's like that. Jared doesn't need God. There's no need for him. He's a very good moral person, gets it right better than most Christians I know, lives it, and it's unbelievable, and he has no need, and it's very hard to reach some of those people. So it's easy to reach the person that fell on their face and they have nowhere to turn. It's hard to find the ones that think that they already have the answers. So that's my homework for you, Lonnie, personally, is if, next time you talk to her, maybe just say, hey, I don't want to be probing, but I'd like to know more about your thought process on life. What makes you tick? And then we can bring it here and say, I'm doing a study in this class. We'd just like to learn about it. Okay, with that said, let's start going over. We got about a half hour. I got a lot to cover tonight. Let's start getting a little meat and potatoes here.
You ready?
Yeah. Well, not yet. Almost.
Oh, another test?
Carla?
No, it's a handout. Go ahead.
Not yet. 2 minutes.
Okay. They thought it was a test. Mary thought it was a test.
No, I'll give you. Hey, there's times I will tell her to give you a test when I'm ready. No test this week. So, but if you guys want one, I can make one for next week.
All right. I'm too.
All right.
And it's like ignoring.
Hey, and you know what we'll do? We'll start giving out candy, like trick or treating, and fool Dan, whoever gets the most answers right. So
there you go, Tony. You take it down and fix it.
Okay. Here we go.
I was gonna-
Meat and potatoes.
Don't leave yet.
Yeah, I have to go. I haven't been home all week. Haven't been home yet.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead. I'm gonna get Joni has to go. I'm gonna get for these.
Oh, I'm
handouts.
sorry. Hey, see you, Joni.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Hey, Joni, just read that over, and you can ask Carla some things when I'm not around.
All right. Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Where's my stuff at?
Okay. We ready?
Bye. See you Sunday.
The last couple weeks we looked at the inspiration of the Bible from the internal evidence. Remember, we put the Bible on its own stand and we said, why do you believe you're inspired by God over every other religious writing? Correct? That's what we did a couple weeks ago, and we looked at the scriptures and they spoke for themselves. We assumed that the Bible was the word of God, but we wanted the Bible to speak for itself. And that's what we did a couple weeks ago, and we'll revisit that later. But now we've moved on in the last week or two about the external evidence, information outside the Bible that may be available, may not, that shows maybe not the inspiration of the Bible, maybe it shows the inspiration of the Bible outside the Bible, but it definitely shows the reliability of the Bible. So compared to every other ancient writing. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about the historical background of the Bible, and that was the papyrus, what it was written on, all the stuff. Remember that? And then we talked about the writing material. We talked about the chart. Remember the chart with Plato and Homer's Iliad? That all fell into the historical part. How does the Bible outside the Bible? How does evidence outside the Bible stack up against other writings? Not just religious writings, any writing of antiquity. And we looked at that through that chart, and we seen how massive the pendulum swings for the Bible over every other ancient writing that historians have looked at, even non-biblical historians. They just where the information lies. And then we added in the uniformity of the Bible. Do you remember that? That was the 66 books, the 40 authors, 3 languages, 3 continents, living 1,500 years apart. That's all having the same message, the same answer for the same cure to the same disease. The guys that were speaking in the Old Testament had the same message as the New Testament on this disease that there's a cure for. And that, to me, is the uniformity of the Bible outside the Bible. So now we're going to move on. Then we had the uniqueness. Last week we went about the uniqueness. Remember that? And the uniqueness was the prophecy. We talked about the thing about why the Bible is unique over every other religious writing, Nostradamus, Book of Mormon, Quran, Hindu Vedas, whatever, that it had 100% accuracy on its predictions and prophetic words. So I think I remember, if you guys remember, I read a quote where a guy said he researched it intently and he found 1,000 prophecies in the Bible, and 689 or something, I remember, came true already, 100% accuracy. And that is very unique, because there's no way that getting 2 predictions right, you might have got lucky. 5 predictions, okay, you're pretty good. To get them all right, no failures. How is that possible? I'm just saying that is unique, that someone that's a skeptic, even myself, if I'm skeptical, you might not believe what it says inside, but you have to know that, oh my gosh, how is that possible? And how does the Bible back that up? And it backs it up through the historical records when you research that. Dan added in the prophetic stuff last week, and I think he added some good stuff there, because that's right up his alley. And it came down to what he said tonight: let your yes be yes, or no be no. So if someone in I think, Dan, what'd you say, that they were sentenced to death if they didn't get it right, right?
Yeah, that was the end result for an error
on a prophecy.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you see how powerful that is? That's that. You can take Nostradamus, for example, and he gets 1 or 2 things close, maybe, almost, maybe not, and we buy into it as a world. And he has so many other writings, they're just hogwash, just doesn't even make sense, or generalized. And the Bible doesn't do that. It gives specific, this happens or this happens. And we see the results in the people's lives. They live long enough to see it. The prophet usually lived long enough to see that it was, maybe Dan can correct me on this, didn't they live long enough that they see their predictions come true?
Jeremiah saw his come true, and Nathan, the 2 I talked about, they would have saw theirs come true.
Yeah.
They're simple prophecy. I mean, we expound on some of the prophecy, but they were just given the simple prophecy, so they saw it come true.
Got ya. So what we're trying to do, remember, I'm trying to build a case from the external evidence why the Bible is reliable. So you have the historical evidence, the uniformity, its uniqueness. And the other thing about the uniqueness, you remember I said, was it doesn't hide its sins. And if you'd read any other book, pick any book out and read about the author on the back page. Remember I said that, and it said you never see, well, this guy was an adulteress, he killed 5 people, and he wrote this book. Okay, and then you can click on websites, and they always say about the author. The cool thing about the author of these 40 authors is most of them were just regular dudes and women and whatever, and just got it wrong sometimes. And it didn't hide its sins. And if you were going to make a lie about something, you wouldn't add all that stuff. You would talk yourself up a little bit more. It's just the human tendency, maybe not in every situation, but in most situations, humans tend to talk themselves up if they want to write a book or author a scroll or a script. They don't talk about their failures. And I think that's unique. And there may be some other unique instances on some other writings you guys could show me that may do that too, but not to the extent of the Bible and every author that's in there. So that's neat. You know, we know Peter denied Christ. We know Moses killed an Egyptian. We know King David basically slept with Bathsheba, had a kid. You know, we can go on and on and on and on and on. And that's unique about the Bible because they were the authors of the Bible. Now we're going to move on to tonight, the archaeological evidence. Now you can pass it out.
Those pages are just one. There's 2.
You can hand out the archaeological evidence. There should be 2 pages with the archaeological evidence.
Both handouts or just that particular handout?
Just that one. We might not get to the other one yet. So just the archaeological evidence.
She's doing a gratitude tree. She wants even the adults to fill something out and they're going to hang on that tree.
Oh, give me one more. I gave you 3.
Oh, you did, okay. You may come back.
Oh, I got it too.
Tom, can I just say something real quick?
No. I'm just kidding.
It's funny that you should say this because I'm not a TV watcher, but I had it on today and there was a program with Dr. Quinn.
Dr. Quinn,
Dr. Quinn. And I didn't, because I go in and out, I don't sit and watch the TV, but I pick up pieces. But what it was in the end, which made me think of you, because they had put a library in the little town where she was. And all the women were reading all the books that were in this library of Dr. Quinn's books. And a lot of the people in the town didn't want their women reading these books. So they went to the priest, whatever, I guess, he was a minister, and said, you know, that this was bad for the community. So they got him to decide that they were going around to everyone's house in the evening and demanding that the books they had taken out of the library were going to be confiscated. They didn't want them. And the minister got everybody else in the town on his side to get all of these books out of the library and get rid of them. Anyway, she decided she was going to go and take her books, put them in her own house. And when they were loading them up, all the people from the town came and they started burning the books. And, you know, all the people from the town, including the minister, were standing on the side looking at her and her husband and kids trying to save these books, which were all destroyed with water. And it shows her picking up one book, and she looked at it and she kept thinking, I'm going to go and talk to the man at the church. And church was going on, and when she went in, she brought the Bible with her, but she didn't say it was the Bible. She just said, this is one of the books that was in the library, and it talks about people that were sinning and married to 9 different people and, you know, lying about this and lying about all the examples that, as you said, the sins in the Bible that were not covered up. And so she went to hand it to him, and they're all in suspense, and she hands it to him, and she says, and this is the Bible. She handed it to him and walked out, and then the community, thought, oh yeah, this is true. We believe the Bible, but there was bad things in the Bible that happened. So
Amen.
that was just a little bit like what you're saying.
Yeah, no doubt.
I saw that.
No, that's good. Thanks, Mary. That's right. That's the sins of the Bible. That's unique. Most religious writings, especially religious writings, don't do that. But usually it's how great they are. But that's what's cool about the Bible is that it's believable. It makes it very believable. So it's not the best evidence that we have outside the Bible to show its reliability, but it is a part of the puzzle. And you have to add that into the puzzle. So now we're going into the archaeological evidence. Now, I will warn you, if anybody's interested in archaeological evidence, it's unbelievable. Like, just in the last 100 years, the finds that people are finding that generations before never got to experience it. Before 1900, probably before 1850, there wasn't a lot of excavation done. Just in the last 150 years, there's so much information archaeological. So what I decided to do was I just pulled out some excerpts and I put them together. I cut some pages out of some books and I added them together in this pamphlet. So you see little black lines because it wasn't my best tape job, but what I tried to present a real small snippet of some archaeological evidence that is very easy to understand and very concise that we may be able to articulate in a conversation, because none of us are archaeologists, and I doubt anybody's going to really dig super deep into this. I know there's so much information. I was flabbergasted for the last 10 years when I read about different archaeological finds. So I just want to go over this pamphlet. We're going to read this pamphlet. We're going to read little sections and then talk about it real quickly. And I'm trying to build the case that archaeology helps show the reliability of the Bible. Maybe not inspiration. I'm not saying that Jesus is God or anything. I'm just saying that we have to contend as a human being about this information. We have to put it in our head if we know it. A lot of people don't know it, don't exist. So somebody read the very first paragraph and then read the David to the end of the end of David. So someone read that out loud, both of that.
Many critics who brush off the Bible as a compilation of folklore and legends do so overlooking the fact that thousands of archaeological discoveries over the past century have verified the historical reliability of the Bible. Here are a few examples. A is David. Until 1993, not a shred of evidence could be found anywhere outside the Bible that David, the king of Israel, ever existed. And so it had become fashionable in some academic circles to dismiss the David stories as mere invention. The critics' verdict was that David was nothing more than a figure of religious and political mythology. Jeffrey Shaler, is the Bible true? Well, their skepticism regarding David collapsed overnight in 1993 when a nearly 3,000-year-old inscription was unearthed in Israel mentioning David, the king of Israel. Wow. This was a tremendous discovery and helped to verify for the first time outside the Bible that David was an actual historical figure. In light of this discovery, Time magazine stated, the skeptics claim that King David never existed is now hard to defend. Michael D. Lemonick, are the Bible's stories true? Archaeology's evidence. That's cool.
Okay. What strikes you about that stuff?
1993 discovered.
Imagine if you lived in 1820. Isn't that awesome? I mean, it sucks for those people in 1897, all the centuries before. But
yeah. But I'm disturbed that I'm just learning about this now, and that was 1990. Why does nobody talk about this?
Right.
That's really cool.
no, I want to preface something with everything we're going to read tonight. This is nothing that I ever wrote or anything. This is just stuff I get out of books. Like, we all research stuff. This is a very, very accredited historian that wrote this, and he wrote this information, and there's books and books and books on this stuff. I didn't want to go over that because it would take us years to go over, basically, if we wanted to go through all the archaeology. I just want to point out some things that it's there, and it's fine. It's happening right now in our generations.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. So, anything else about the David finds that you find interesting? All right. Well, let's the only other thing I'd say, the 3,000-year-old inscription.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool because, there's a lot of skeptics that think, there wasn't writing so far, a long time ago. That Moses couldn't have wrote the Bible. There wasn't even wasn't even invented then. So that was pretty cool, I thought. What the inscriptions were or whatever, it obviously stated it was whatever it said, what it said. So let's read.
It's really.
Oh, go ahead.
Somebody to read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1,000-year-old dialect. Somebody was able to read that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a guy, and if I'll remember his name eventually, but there was a famous archaeologist in the 70s, the 60s to the 1960 to 1990, and he went purposely to Israel he was a big atheist, and I'll get his name for maybe next week, but he's the most famous archaeologist of Israel's history. He went there to disprove the Bible through archaeology because there was not much out there, and he found out after like 3 or 4 decades, he himself and his people have unearthed a lot of this stuff, and he ended up becoming a believer through archaeology.
Wow.
I'll get his name so someone wants to dig into him further, but he's a famous, as soon as I'd say his name, you guys would kind of heard of it. Because as soon as I read it, I'm like, I remember hearing about that guy, but I didn't know much about him. But he was actually an atheist trying to disprove the Bible through archaeology. He becomes after 3 centuries or 3 decades, he becomes a believer because he finds all this good stuff, and he couldn't refute it. Now, let's go to B, Pontius Pilate. Someone read Pontius Pilate.
The New Testament tells us that Pontius Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea at the time of Jesus, who oversaw Jesus' trial and then sentenced him to death by crucifixion. Was Pilate a legendary figure? No. In 1961, a team of Italian archaeologists was digging in Caesarea. How do you say that? Caesarea. On the shore of the beautiful Mediterranean Sea in Israel. While clearing away the sand and overgrowth from the jumbled ruins of a Roman theater, these archaeologists made an astonishing find. They uncovered a limestone block that bore an inscription in Latin dating to the early part of the 1st century that mentioned Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea. This inscription verifies that Pontius Pilate was an actual historical person, that he reigned in the very position ascribed to him by the Gospels, and as perfect as he would have had the author to, and as prefect, he would have had the authority to condemn or pardon Jesus, just as the Gospel accounts report. Jeez. Prefect, perfect, Caesarea, report.
What do you think of that find?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anything started that? The one thing that started me was 1961. Here we go. 20th century. A lot of the people that lived before this, they had definitely some ground to stand on. Why they may or may not have believed if they were wanting to know extra biblical stuff, and no one could prove it. Now it's being it's not proof. I don't want to say that. It's evidence. There's no proof of it. It's showing evidence that the thing that points out to me is that you can't ever say now that Pontius Pilate wasn't a real person. I'm not saying who he was, but he was actually a person that did that. He worked at the exact same time period. And when you look into more of this stuff, this is just a very general. If you look into the archaeological finds of Pontius Pilate, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot, like it'll say, how did they know it was the same Pontius Pilate type thing? And they go by what they wrote it on. They go by other inscriptions, and they use other non-religious finds, and they kind of, that's how scientists or historians and archaeologists do it, You know, people, a lot of these guys aren't even Christians. They're just archaeologists and they're just finding this stuff. So the point is, this dude existed. That's the point. It's not going to make you believe in Jesus as the Messiah, but it does show that there was a guy named Pontius Pilate, and that was a prefect that could have had that power to do some things. Okay, let's read the next one. We got about 5-10 minutes. Let's finish this second page. So someone reads C.
Another discovery helped to verify the reality of crucifixion in Israel is the 1st century. According to the Bible, Jesus' hands or wrists were nailed to the cross. But at one time, critics and crucifixions with nails never took place in Israel. In the first century, no evidence of crucifixion, crucified victim had ever been either uncovered in Israel. So skeptics and scholars dismissed the Gospels accounts as either imagined or inaccurate. While critics of the Bible were shown to be wrong again in 1968, it was then that the crew of builders from the Israel Ministry of Housing working in Jerusalem accidentally discovered an ancient Jewish cemetery that contained the remains of several men who were killed during Jewish revolt against Rome in approximately AD 70. One of the bones
Ossuary or something.
contained the skeleton of a young man and inscription of the man's name, Johann ben
There you go.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
And what stunned the archaeologists most, though, was how this man died. He was put to death by crucifixion with nails. How was that determined? He still had an iron spike driven through his heel bone. The Romans typically removed the nails from their victims. Iron was expensive, but apparently this nail was too difficult to remove. The tip of the nail had been bent back towards the head, unlikely the result of hitting a knot in the wood. And so the soldiers left it there. And now we have solid archaeological evidence that the Romans did crucify people in Israel in the 1st century with nails, just as the Bible said.
Wow.
Anything you want to comment? Neat stuff, huh?
1968 again.
Yeah. See, that's because archaeology wasn't big back, over 100 years ago. It's just come to light, the last century. So what else? Anything else? That I thought that was really cool.
I was thought about the iron. Never thought about that being expensive. I imagine they would remove the nails.
Yeah. They were efficient killers. The Romans were very efficient at killing people. So they wanted to salvage anything that they could make money on or whatever. So, people that they crucified and killed were just trash. So to them, why would they leave the iron in there? I think that's a great point, Mary. I think taking that and reselling it or reusing it,
Yeah.
They'd use it for the next victim.
Yeah.
So,
Probably the cross or the.
so hey, Carla.
Yeah.
Stop talking, please.
Sorry.
I'm just, hey, we're going to run a couple minutes over. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to finish this because I want to finish reading down through these finds real quick. So somebody just read down through the rest of them. You don't have to read where the Bible verses are. Just skip those, but read down these couple other things. Down to the end. Someone pick up there.
Ancient extra-biblical accounts of a catastrophic flood. The palace of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and a wall relief depicting the Assyrian siege on Lachish. The ruins of Jericho, along with the evidence the city wall fell down flat at the very time the Old Testament dates the crossing of the Hebrew people into Canaan. Hezekiah's tunnel, built to secretly channel water into the city of Jerusalem, circa 700 BC. The ancient ruins of Babylon, including the ruins of King Nebuchadnezzar's palaces, temples, city walls, houses, inscriptions mentioning Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. The Babylonian Chronicle. These ancient historical records verify that the Babylonians invaded the land of Judah, besieged the city of Jerusalem, and took the Jewish captives back to Babylon, just as the Bible said they did. The pool of Siloam, where Jesus sent the blind man with mud on his eyes to wash and receive a healing. The well, called Jacob's Well, where Jesus met the Samaritan woman. The pool, called Bethesda, where Jesus took the man who had been lame for 38 years to take up his bed and walk. Herod's palace, where John the Baptist was imprisoned and killed. The historian Josephus mentions this palace and John the Baptist's imprisonment and murder there. A bone ossuary mentioning Caiaphas, the Jewish high priest, who presided over Jesus' late night trial. The synagogue in Capernaum, on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus often taught. Mosaic tile floor of an early Christian church in Megiddo, Israel, that says the church was built in the memory of the God Jesus Christ. Evidence the early Christians believed that Jesus was God.
And one of those from Carla's Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
About the
well,
middle way
Jacob's.
down, the well called Jacob's Well was for Carla's passage tonight.
Yeah.
And the point of all doing this tonight was to show you ladies that up until recently in the last half century, we didn't have, from an archaeological standpoint, I mean, we didn't have a lot of extra biblical stuff to show these places existed that the Bible talks about. And the one thing, when you read into archaeological evidence really deep, it's really interesting. If you got, I can give you guys a lot of information if you text me or whatever. I have a couple websites you can look into, a lot of stuff that people have researched, and it's really neat. You'll be sitting there for hours just reading about this kind of stuff. There's thousands of finds in the last half century. And the point is, how does that help us? How does that help our thinking? Well, it gives us more information in our brain that we can communicate that truth. It might not show that Jesus was the way, the truth, and the life, but what it does show is that sometimes people believed it back then. Sometimes this stuff is not imaginary places. A lot of places were unearthed in the last 50 years that we could never find. And archaeologists have done that. And I think that's awesome that God, that knows all things, all of a sudden puts in people's hearts to look for stuff. And it's right there in front of them when they start finding it. You just got to look. I mean, that reminds me of the passage when Paul says that God's not very far from any one of us. You just got to look for him. I just think it's cool. So that's all I want to say. Who was talking there?
It was just me just saying is in my walk, I've had a lot of doubts off and on through the years. And whenever you have a doubt, if you have these archaeological pamphlets or
It helps.
information,
Yes.
and you can look back and say, well, yeah, it really is true.
It
How
does.
can that be different, you know?
That's happened to me before too. Yep. As a matter of fact, one time I was having some struggles, having some different doubts, and I pulled up on YouTube. I was driving. I had like a 2-hour drive, and I listened to the whole Case for Christ. Lee Strobel had a 45-minute, an hour long video on YouTube about the Case for Christ. And so I listened to it, and I was like, oh, okay. Now, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we get attacked with those different doubts. Yeah.
So, Carla, before you shut it off so we can pray, I just want to sum the night up real quick.
So what is going on with this recording?
Hey, Carla?
Yeah.
Carla.
Yeah, I hear you. I gotcha.
Okay, okay. Don't shut
Yes.
it off. Don't shut it off yet. I want to sum the night up.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm trying to do is build evidence on top of evidence that removes a little bit of doubt that lays in our minds. It doesn't mean you have to believe in it all. I'm just saying you have to deal with it. There is information out there in many different ways, historically, uniqueness, uniformity, and now we're looking at a little bit of the archaeological evidence. There's plenty out there in that. Next week, we're going to discuss the scientific accuracy outside the Bible. So there's a lot of information on that.
I'm looking forward.
We're going to look at that. Don't hand that pamphlet out. You can do it next week, Carla.
Okay.
And then after that, if we get through that, we're going to look into the extra biblical writings outside the Bible that can confirm what's inside the Bible. Got it?
Got it.
And it's just neat stuff that you guys will hopefully find as interesting as I always do. So, Dan, is there anything you want to add, Dan, or are you just saying done?